let's call the Finance Committee meeting to order. There's one change on the agenda. We're gonna hear from Bev Doherty of the Willmar Design Center first, and then we'll hear about the mayor's proposed budget. So, Bev, if you'd come up to the podium, please, and explain to us what you have here.
Thank you very much. I gave you a little handout as a proposal. Instead of the Design Center each year looking for a budget from the city, something that the Design Center Board has talked about many times, and that is a downtown improvement district. Would be a way for us to plan on money that we would be able to generate through excess taxes, through increased property values downtown, that we could use not only for our operations budget, but to expand and match our existing grants, of which you know we have several in process, one that's happening next year, and the building improvement project, which as I drove over, you see a lot of facade improvements. That was a grant received from the deed for downtown enhancement, and all of that money is now visible in improvements downtown. We are going to apply for another deed grant this year. I'm hoping for the same amount, including the Central Business District, so we can do some more expansion and improvement downtown. And we also would be able to match a lot of our trail grants and our housing grants, of which we have one unmatched at this point for $10,000.
Okay, I've got a couple questions, and then I'll ask the committee, and probably ultimately, Bev, we're going to take this for information tonight.
I understand.
But when you do an improvement district, what does that do to the city? What does that do to taxes? How does that actually work?
Actually, what you have been receiving to date through this proposal would mean through 2011 would remain the same, and any increased taxes in the Central Business District would go toward the improvement district that the Willmar Design Center would manage.
Okay. Okay. Committee, you have questions? Councilmember Dockin?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with you. We should take it just for information. I think that's the appropriate thing to do.
Okay. And Bev, what I'm going to ask of staff is that they look into this for us, and we'll have it on an agenda. I don't know if it'll be the next Finance Committee, but we'll have it on pretty soon, Bev, so that we can give you some sort of a definitive answer on this. But
thank you.
Right now, you know, it's just kind of, we'll just take it for information. So unless there's any other questions. Okay.
I understand.
Thanks,
thank
Bev.
you.
Okay. Now, I'm going to turn this over to the mayor to hear his 2012 proposed budget. So with that, Mr. Mayor, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. To the citizens of Willmar, to the members of the City Council, the city staff, the media, and guests, greetings. I am pleased to present my first budget as mayor of the City of Willmar. I want to thank the City Council for their input and thank the city staff for their assistance in developing the 2012 budget. In Willmar, we are fortunate to have a stable revenue base and a growing tax base. The growth in market value over the past year equaled $12,565,000, of which $9,732,000 can be attributed to new construction. Even with our growth, these are challenging times for local government, and Willmar is no exception. Some of the challenges we faced in putting together the 2012 budget include decreasing revenue streams, specifically reductions in government aid. Aging infrastructure, both our roadways and our buildings need attention. Personnel costs, we have not yet settled our labor contracts, and like many businesses, we could continue to see increases in our benefit costs. Completion of the new wastewater treatment plant and decommissioning of the former plant. 2012 will be our first full year of operation. In developing the 2012 budget, my goal was to develop a responsible budget that would continue to provide the high quality of services that our citizens have come to expect, while trying to maintain a low tax burden for our citizens. The total proposed budget for 2012 is $31,683,000. This is an increase over 2011, which was an adopted budget of $25,694,000. However, I would point out that the 2012 budget included $6 million in expenditures from the local option sales tax for the former airport site and the Western Interceptor. The general operating fund represents $12,397,000, which is actually a slight decrease over the 2011 adopted budget of $12,777,000. In light of the challenges we face, and because I feel it is necessary to preserve our core services, I have also included a levy increase of $196,000 in the 2012 budget. The actual effect of the levy increase on a median home valued at $114,000 will be $15 per year, or $1.25 a month. We currently maintain the lowest city tax rate of all of our peer cities, the city tax rate in all of our peer cities, and the 5th lowest total tax rate of all of our peer cities. The elimination of 5 positions with the city, a small increase was necessary even after making reductions in the amount of $500,000. The reductions in 2012 include the elimination of 5 positions within the city: 2 patrol officers, 1 assistant city engineer, 1 public works position, and 1 custodial position. All of these positions are currently vacant and would remain vacant under this budget. A reduction of $27,000 in our contract for government relations, i.e. Federal lobbyists. A reduction of $23,000 in our contribution to the Wilmer Design Center. Finally, as we look at the 2012 budget, our goals include the successful integration of our new city administrator. Ms. Stevens has already undertaken a busy schedule of meeting community leaders, as well as meeting with the staff, city council, and with me. Efficient and effective operations. We will continue to evaluate our service delivery and look for ways to streamline services. We will also be reevaluating our sewer rates to ensure that they are appropriate as we have more experience with the operations of our new wastewater treatment plant. Investing in the infrastructure. We have planned almost $1.5 million in capital outlay for 2012. We will continue to evaluate opportunities for quiet zones and for stormwater management. Those specific dollars have not been allocated in this budget. A thriving and dynamic regional center. To this end, we must conclude the old airport land release program, begin construction of the Western Interceptor sewer line, and expand our industrial park. We must also plan for the downtown's future, a key component for keeping Wilmer a dynamic and thriving regional center. Increasing confidence in the city government by better engaging our citizens and strengthening our community partnerships. We want to make better use of our website and RAC 8 to communicate with our citizens. We want our government to be open and transparent, and we want to strengthen all the relationships that we have with all of our community partners. I wish to thank you for the opportunity to present this 2012 budget, and I've asked Finance Director Steve Okens to provide some additional information and explanation, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the committee, citizens, council members in the audience. One housekeeping note: there are handouts on the table in the front of the room here. There were a couple errors in the original presentation that was sent out to the city council members. As any budget process goes, there's always last-minute changes and those types of things, and so there were a couple minor changes and corrections made. Meeting with the mayor in previous years, there was a couple recommendations that he had made that didn't get changed in there. One was cultural diversity, the design center, and And so those changes have been corrected and are on the new format there. The presentation outlines the mission statement and goals that the City Council has adopted in a retreat that they held earlier this spring. The mission statement stayed relatively the same that it has been for the past few years. The goals, again, you'll see there the leadership, the successful integration of the city administrator that the mayor has mentioned in his address. Under operations, there was efficient and effective services. Infrastructure, they talked about the efficient investment of transportation, facilities, and technology. The mayor touched on that somewhat with the development of the industrial park and the redevelopment of the old airport. Connections, the council felt very strongly about public partnerships, engaging the community, and reestablishing the confidence in city government, and under development, thriving, dynamic regional center. We have a little different format this year in that we just kind of consolidated some of the numbers, thinking that it would be easier to read, and I do have some explanations, and we are able to provide detailed information that compile all these totals there. As the mayor indicated in his address, the current general operating budget proposed for 2012 is $12.4 million roughly, down slightly from the 12.7 that was adopted for 2011. Action that still needs to be addressed by the Finance Committee and the full City Council would be to amend the 2011 budget due to local government aid decreases and market value decreases, and that is scheduled to be addressed at our next finance meeting. And so it basically, when those adjustments will be made, is basically flat over 2011. The capital improvements has a substantial increase. Again, the mayor addressed that in his address about the proposal to develop the old airport site to the tune of about $6 million. That basically is funded through the local option sales tax. There's greater detail on that as we get later on in the slides. A portion of that is basically fund balances that are carried forward due to the fact that the state aeronautics has restricted the city to put any improvements in there due to the land releases. And so a large portion of that has built up. There's projected about $2 million, and again, there's more detail as we go through the presentation. Special revenue internal service funds before were spelled out to be like the RAC 8, CVB, transit, and office services, somewhat dictated and restricted by past council action as well as statutory authority. Debt service is primarily the 10-year street replacement program bonds. The city has had a universal replacement program over the last 10 years plus, and that is the annual debt projected for 2012. And the final one there is the waste treatment plant. Again, this will be the second full year in 2012 of the operations. The rates have been set through 2012 with the understanding that we would be reviewing that to see how close we are on our projections, and if the directive of having 1 year debt service and 6 months of operating will be able to be met, and that will be taken up during the budget process as well. On page 4, you see a listing of the revenues. Again, maybe not quite what the council and the public is used to in prior years, more in summary totals, but again, we can provide more detailed information, and if I can just slightly point out some detail on the summaries there. What you see there as far as the current property tax, that's $196,000 more than what was certified in 2011. One change that the city and cities throughout the state will be encouraging is that there is no local levy limits imposed on cities. The local levy limits were the combination of the LGA and property taxes. That is removed for 2012, and so that number could be set at whatever the mayor or the council would want to set it at. Other taxes and assessments, again, primarily the major item there is the local option sales tax and special assessments. The local government aid is again detailed further in the slide presentation, is a reduction from roughly $5 million. This is basically what the 2011 adjustment that the state did for the city. Service charges primarily consist of the waste treatment, again, funds. Other financing sources, primarily the main revenues there are intergovernmental transfers. A large portion comes from the municipal utilities. We get some from Rice Hospital and an administrative charge coming from the waste treatment plant. Also interest, and there's a proposed sale of 2 parcels of land, again goes to the discussion about the development of the old airport site, and that's about $600,000 included in there. Fund balances account for basically 3 areas. The loss, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, there will be roughly $4 million established at the end, projected at the end of 2011, and that's proposed to be entirely spent in 2012. The waste treatment plant is looking at roughly using up $2 million of their reserves based on the direction on setting the rates. And again, the bond issues with interest rates where they're at today, we find that a lot of people are prepaying their special assessments, and so we're using a large portion of the fund balance to pay the debt service as well. Slide 5 basically is just a graphical presentation of the revenues that we just reviewed. You'll see there that the major area of service charges, again, the waste treatment plant, but it is pretty basic, evenly split among a number of areas there. A large portion of the fund balance, and again, 2 major factors in the 2012 budget is the redevelopment of the industrial park and the operations of the waste treatment plant. Page 6 lists the expenditures. These are primarily categorized for comparative purposes for all communities as they are reported to the state auditor's office. Again, there is more detailed information later on in the presentation, and these are again for comparative purposes, so communities can kind of compare like type operations. The large one you see there again is the waste treatment plant. Again, a graphical presentation of the previous slide showing that the 2 large areas of waste treatment and other charges, capital outlay and waste treatment, as I mentioned, the redevelopment of the industrial park and the operation of the waste treatment plant. Page 8 goes into further detail of the first expenditure category of general government, basically the general administration of the city. A few notes on this page that I'd like to point out is that the city administrator budget shows a slight decrease. 2011, we incurred additional costs with the retirement of former Administrator Schmidt and the hiring of Administrator Stevens in the professional services area that we will not be needing in 2012. The assessing department, you'll see a decrease. That is 1 less assessing position. And the elections, again, 2012 is an election year. The other departments that you see here have slight increases that you see there. It does not include any kind of contractual agreements since they are not negotiated at this point, as Mayor mentioned in his address. It does include a 5% increase in health insurance, which is required at this time under contractual obligations, but that item may change or may not change depending on where the negotiations go. And page 9 is the public safety, which is your police and fire protections. The police department budget has 3 less positions that are not filled. They are in the 2011 budget. Those 3 positions, 2 of them have been removed from the 2012 proposal. 1 has been funded, but it still remains vacant. The fire protection, there is some projected savings in pensions due to the possible changeover to the state retirement program. On page 10 is your public works area. The maintenance of other improvements and professional services have been reduced in the airport. I would have to research if someone has specific reasons or questions on that, in the fact that former Administrator Schmidt had the conversations with the department directors. I did not directly have that, but that information is available. The engineering department is 1 less position, and that would be the assistant engineer, and the public works department would be 1 less position for the public works crew. On page 11, under leisure services, the main item I'd like to point out on this page is, again, the Iraq 8, where in 2011 we used some of the reserves, and in 2012 there is $75,000 projected to go into transfer to the operating budget out of there to get that level of that reserve down to about 1 year of operations. On page 12 is a listing of all the non-departmental or non-operating or non-functional type expenditures. You'll see there the capital improvements, the large increase there. Again, as the mayor addressed in his opening address, the $6 million increase is again primarily due to the projected development of the industrial park, funded entirely by local option sales tax. Again, $4 million from built-up reserves through 2011 due to the land releases, and $2 million projected to be generated in 2012. The waste treatment plant, you see a slight increase there due to, again, the second full year of operations. Non-departmental, there is a detailed description further on in the presentation, and again, this is where the 2 errors occurred in the cultural diversity and the design center numbers that were sent out to the council previously. And the tax increment districts, there were 2 of those. Those have been retired and no longer are in existence. And again, the special assessment bonds, which is the debt service. On page 13 is a complete listing of the $7.5 million of capital improvements. Again, you'll notice the $6 million of industrial park. The other capital improvements there are basically sent to the Planning Commission for their review. They've adopted the 5-year improvement program along with the council, who has reviewed the vehicle replacement program. And this is projected in 2012, kind of a catch-up for what we've been doing the last few years with the local government aid, by kicking the can down the road, so to speak, and deferring purchases of some capital improvements. Historically, there's been about $1 million to $1.2 million in capital purchases on equipment and those types of things. If you remove the $6 million of the industrial park, you're looking at roughly $1.5 million, and that is funded from expired capital purchases and those types of balances. Page 14, the non-departmental funding. A lot of these items are revenue neutral, and by that I mean we are the parent government unit of the component units of Rice Hospital and the municipal utilities. There are, under the retired employees insurance, there may be an expenditure projected here, but there is also a revenue offset, in where if a retired employee is taking health insurance under the COBRA laws, they can continue it on, but they do reimburse the city. So in the other financing sources, there would be a revenue offset by a similar amount. The insurance, again, there you see the downtown Main Street number that had been corrected from the previous presentation that was sent out. Insurance deductibles, The $200,000, again, is a level that the council had set. We've had some budgetary adjustments this year dealing with health insurance and those types of things. We haven't had the claims, I think, if you recall, in the city clerk's reports have been pretty good, and so that level is again projected for 2012. Refunds and reimbursements, again, are basically pass-throughs where we receive items that we have to pass through to the municipal utilities and Rice Hospital. And we certainly can provide itemized, detailed information on all those items. On page 15, again, is a continuation of the non-departmental. Again, the cultural diversity item, Meals on Wheels, civic promotions, employers' insurance contribution. That is where, under the early buyout, the city pays for that program. On page 16, this is still under the old format and is pretty busy looking. It's a lot of information on one page. It basically is put together to show the council and the public the activity that the city has had to endure over the past 4 years on LGA cuts and reductions in their budgets, and then as I mentioned, it's kind of kicking the can down the road. The way the city has handled that somewhat in the past is to defer capital improvements. What's being proposed in 2012 is actually cutting 5 positions. 2011 will be not filling those 5 positions that were budgeted in combination with some deferred capital improvements, but some of those have been picked up in 2012. You'll see here that in 2012, the second figure from the top on the far right side of $233,000 is basically a reduction in the revenue, available revenue, between the local government aid and the property tax levy. Even though there is a proposed $196,000 increase in the property tax levy, the city is still going to be $233,000 less in revenue in the combination of those 2 large revenue sources. Page 17 graphically shows this trend where even though the state has told us that we are going to get a certain amount in LGA allotments, that the actual amount of LGA received has been somewhat less, and that as that amount goes down, to maintain the same level of services, that the property tax levy has creeped up slightly. And you'll see that on the far right where they're about equal as far as revenue to fund the operations. Page 18 is just a comparison of the 2012 proposed property tax levy and the 2011 levy as adopted. The 2001 footnote on the 2011 property tax levy as adopted was somewhat less than the amount that the city could have adopted under the levy limit law, about $182,000 less. Page 19 is the traditional comparison of other regional centers with the city of Willmar. You'll see overall that there are 3 communities, Alexandria, Brainerd, and Fergus Falls, who overall have a property tax levy less than the city of Willmar. That would include Candy White County, School District, and any special districts. And if you look at just the city portion of the property tax levy, that the city of Willmar is still the lowest of all the regional centers that we have comparison data for. The 2011 information will be coming available in September through the League of Minnesota Cities, and I am sure that you'll see with LGA cuts and those types of things similar data for that year as well. And with that, Mr. Mayor, council members, I would just like to briefly talk about the process. Back in April, the Finance Committee received the budget calendar. We had projections in there of when target dates when we'd like to handle certain information. The action that we're looking for tonight is to set a preliminary levy. That is to be certified to the county auditors according to state law by September 15th. The budget calendar had initially projected this presentation to be before you in July. There were a number of circumstances that delayed that, some of that being the state shutdown, notification of what's going to happen with LGA, those types of factors. But we still need to certify that number to the state or to the county auditor by September 15th, which would allow you to take action by the full council at your first meeting in September, which is, I believe, the 6th. You would then customarily take this under advisement, have this on the finance agenda from now until the end of November, take public input, and then do a final recommendation to a public hearing held the first meeting in December. With that, Mr. Chairman, Mayor Yanish, we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Mr. Mayor, do you have further comments?
I don't have any further comments other than the fact that I would really appreciate, and it's a necessity actually, that the council go through this and let me know what their thinking is on it, and that this will be on every finance committee agenda, as I recall.
That's correct.
Okay.
In fact, in that regard, I'm looking to do things maybe a little bit differently this year, and I'm going to be meeting with Charlene later this week to come up with some ideas. But one thing that I'm thinking about, and I would like input from the council, is I'm thinking maybe we should have a work session sometime in maybe late October. Certainly wouldn't take the place of our budget meeting that we have in November, but it might give everybody an opportunity to kind of hash things out a little bit and have a little further discussion. So I'd like some input on that. Are there questions right now that the committee has? Yes, sir. Mr. Dockin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 17, and I'm assuming that this is an assumption for 12, that LGA allocated and LGA received probably will not be the same. Is that correct?
The graph actually shows that the projected LGA received is to be the same as the LGA allotted.
We are optimistic that we will receive what we've been allotted. But yeah, you can see that the trend, that's not been the case.
Yeah, the previous years it didn't
Right.
end up being that way.
Right.
Thank you.
Councilman Fagerly.
Mr. Chairman, just a question on non-departmental, page 15, baseball boosters. Is this the last year that we have to pay them?
Yes, it is. This should entirely retire the debt.
Okay. And then the Humane Society, that's our annual.
That, I believe, is the third year of a 5-year commitment.
Okay. And then our numbers, does that include the elimination of the homestead credit for property owners?
In 2012, to somewhat explain that, in 2011, there is a reduction actually by the state of Minnesota to the city of about $279,000. What will happen in 2012 is that the reduction, the city will not see a reduction. It basically shifts from residential homeowners who will not notice the difference because their value is to be adjusted. It'll shift it over to commercial and industrial, but the city will still receive those dollars by an increase in the commercial and industrial.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then one other question. We're giving the CAT Transit $9,000 this year, or for 2012,
That's projected, yeah.
for a new bus.
Proposed.
The contract that CAT signed for 2012 states that the city and county could be responsible for 20% of CAT's budget. So if the state or federal decrease their funding, the city and the county could have to pay like $80,000, $85,000 each if there's a big reduction. We found that out at the last CAT meeting. So just to be aware.
That's new information to me, I guess, but we'll certainly make a note of that.
Yeah. We will certainly look at that.
All right.
Any other questions? Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Dennis. Steve, this homestead credit reduction and the shifting of some of the tax burden supposedly to commercial real estate. I attended a meeting out at the golf course. Representative Davids was there from Preston, Minnesota, southeastern part of the state. And also present was Larry Kindle, administrator for the county. And there was an article in the paper, I think the day before that meeting, where this shift was going to result in an average increase of about 6% in levied taxes on property in the county. And he had some great concerns about that. And then afterwards, talking to him, he said that the preliminary figures that they'd run would affect the city taxpayers was approximately a 10% increase. And I don't know if anybody on the staff has looked at that or run their own estimates, but that's a pretty healthy boost.
If I might add, that's one of the things, this whole revenue shifting and change thing, I'm hoping to have a more detailed explanation from staff, so that maybe they'll have time to research those sorts of things, but that's one of the things that I think we need to really understand.
Well, I agree. That's the reason I've raised it. I mean, I was a little disconcerting to hear some of that conversation last week, especially when the legislature has told us they didn't increase our taxes any. So, I mean, I find that a little bit ironic, but we'll see what happens. But I think we need to take a very close look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
If I may take a point, Steve, could you explain to us a little bit about the difference? Now, there is a difference. City is just 1/3 of the tax statement that you will get. And Steve, if you'd take a minute and explain the differences between the three, if we could.
If I can just pull up the slide number 19. Again, this is a breakdown of a person's property tax rate for the city of Willmar. In 2010, it was basically 104.11. Of that, 28, or roughly 1/3, a little less than 1/3, is for the city of Willmar. So for every dollar that a person pays in property taxes, only a portion comes to the city of Willmar. The rest is distributed to the county and the school district. And those entities hold their own public hearings, their proposals. I have not seen what they are proposing for 2012 at all. I don't know if that answers your question, Mr. Mayor, or
Yes, it does. I think what I would like to do is expand a little bit on Councilman Johnson's question, is the fact that from what I was at that meeting as well, Councilman, and that from what I understand, the county portion is going to go up considerably. So we may get some slack as a total bill goes up, but the city's portion is going up rather minutely. Did I say that properly?
Again, your proposal is $196,000, which is roughly a 5% on the dollar amount. Now, there are different ways to look at percentages and what is the percentage on the rate versus the dollar, the dollar amount percentage. So it is, for the operations, it's, I don't know, I haven't heard the county's proposal, so.
Okay. If we don't have any other questions, we need an action to, if we so choose, to adopt the preliminary levy at that $3 million, whatever it is. I lost the page here. The levy amount.
It's on page 18 of your presentation.
Yeah, the $3,992,734.
make a motion to approve the levy.
Second.
Discussion.
Second.
Yeah, I said, is there discussion? Just remembering that this will go to the council for action on Tuesday night. Can always be reduced, but can't be increased. If there's no further questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. We will take the balance of, or all of the mayor's budget as information outside of that one action, and we will be talking about it on a regular basis at the Finance Committee meetings. Again, I would encourage, if you have ideas, thoughts that you want to do differently than we've done in the past, please let me know. Okay. We will then move forward to the couple of other action items, maybe just one, that we have to take here. And the first one is a wastewater treatment plant land lease. Steve, are you going to?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Included in your packet is an executive summary. We have attached an agricultural land lease for the Ivan Grothus Irrevocable Trust for the wastewater treatment plant interceptor. This lease is similar to the 6 leases that we have on the same interceptor line with the Quam properties. It's staff's recommendation that you approve the lease as presented and authorize the administrator and mayor to sign it.
Question. I see it's in the amount of $100.
And again, it's similar to the 6 other ones that we have with the Quam properties.
Second. Approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. We have a report from the MUC, their financial information. I found that very interesting. I don't remember seeing that in the past. Maybe we've had it, but it's very interesting. Any questions on that? Future agenda items. Steve, maybe you're going to have to explain the downtown commercial revolving fund. What that might be. Just give us a heads up.
The city has received a request from a developer that has asked for some conduit financing. If you recall the Dominion project, they have come back with a formal, again, request, and we are clarifying if they are going through the Housing Redevelopment Authority or coming back to the city for that request. They've filled out all the formal paperwork, and so that will be coming to the committee for action at a later date, as well as I mentioned earlier, the 2011 budget amendments will be at our next meeting.
Okay, we understand that. Is there any miscellany?
I have no miscellany, Mr. Chairman.
Councilmember Dockin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Chairman, excuse me. And Mr. Mayor. I received an email today from a citizen, and I would like to bring this to the attention of the Finance Committee, the mayor, and the new city administrator, inasmuch as we have new eyes now with a new city administrator and a new mayor. This is an article that was written September the 3rd, 2010, and it says, David Little wrote this article, Brass Talks of Merging Assessors in City with County's Office. And just want to read a couple of the items in here. It says the Willmar City Council Committee is supporting the concept of consolidating the City Assessing Office with Kandiyohi County Assessor's Office. The Council's Labor Relation Committee will recommend the Council approve the concept under which the City Assessing Office would close and the Department's 4 employees would perform their duties at the County Assessor's Office in the downtown county building. City Administrator Michael Schmidt discussed the concept Tuesday with the committee, and the committee voted to support the idea. The concept will be presented to the full council on September 7th. That's about a year ago. The concept is a direct result of the interest expressed by the council and by Kandiyohi County Board of Commissioners to review the ways things are being done and to be more efficient and effective. And with this new budget, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Mayor, I think this needs to go back again to the labor relations, and I think we need to revisit this. It's my understanding that the county commissioners are still in favor of this, as are, I believe, the leadership within the county. And so I think it behooves us to relook at this again.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilman Dock, and I will just share this with you, is that I have a meeting set up with Administrator Kleindl on Wednesday, and I will report back. Believe me, this will be discussed, but also I will report back to our city administrator what I find, and it will be discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anything else? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned. We're free.